and a man who's very involved today in the operation of his race car, and we see it right now driven by Frank Hawley. That was his father, Jerry. We saw it in front of the car, and his opponent will be Eddie Hill. And even though Eddie Hill has gone winless since the Fall Nationals of 1988, he qualified among the very top cars at 5.03. Now, Frank Hawley, when asked to fill in for the car owner, Gerald Gwynn, responded immediately, winning his very first race, the Spring Nationals. And, Don, what is Gerald thinking of right now?
Well, he's watching the car very intently, hoping to pick up on some little thing that the crew won't see from their position, carry it back to the pits for the next round.
So it's Eddie Hill in the far lane, up against Frank Hawley in the Gerald Gwynn car in the near lane. Gerald cheering on Hawley, and Hawley wins it at 5.03 seconds.
Well, the team is doing a great job, and so is Hawley. 5.03, Darrell.
I'll tell you, man, them guys got their act together today, and I just can't. It's unbelievable that that team has stayed together like that through all this thick and thin of my accident, and they're still just as competitive as they were when I was driving it. It's great.
Looks to me like he got a good shot at winning this race.
Well, I tell you what, there's not too much pressure on Frank this weekend, so I figured he ought to win.
Good show.
So he's already taken the pressure away from Frank. And he receives congratulations from his father, Jerry. In the first semifinal, it'll be Frank Hawley against Kenny Bernstein. Hawley has the all-important lane choice, as he has the quickest elapsed time from the previous round. In the second semifinal, Laurie Johns against Joe Amato. Amato has the lane choice. Now let's go down to Steve. He's with Frank Hawley.
Well, we were impressed with Joe Amato's 5.06. We are dazzled, Frank, by your 5.03.
Well, you know, Ken Veeney's the kind of guy that even in the midst of a problem weekend like we've had with qualifying, he can come back and turn those low numbers. And, you know, we all had confidence that come race day, he'd be able to do that.
And Darrell's a part of this. He's getting involved in the tune-up on this car.
Without question, I'm really impressed at Darrell's recovery, because he's back there every round. He's wanting to look at the computer tapes, and he's got a lot to offer. And I think he's helped us out a little bit already.
Indeed. Thanks.
In spite of the fact that Hawley is a two-time funny car champion, he has never won this race. And now we're ready for round 2 of funny cars.
And it will feature, Charlie, a couple of drivers who I'm very sure are darn happy to be here in round number 2. They're from opposite sides of the country. We just saw Art Hindi, and he will be up against Dominic Santucci. Here we get a good look at the sleek fiberglass body that covers the tube frame and 4,000 horsepower nitro engine. Now, Santucci runs only on a regional basis, hits a few of the national events closest to his Glen Willard, Pennsylvania home. Art Hindi, San Bernardino, California. Well, he's had a layoff of about 8 months and only recently returned to the sport. That's why I say they're darn glad to be this far, Don Garlitz.
You bet. It's impressive just qualifying for the U.S. Nationals. These two guys are in the second round already.
And here's the start. Hindi versus Santucci. Art Hindi loses traction. Dominic Santucci suddenly becomes a player at 5.40 seconds. You saw his crewman just stare at the board, disbelieving.
That was the first of 4 races of the second round. Still to come, the all-important confrontation between John Force and this man at McCulloch. This is Charlie Jones along with Steve Evans and Don Garlitz here at the U.S. Nationals in Indianapolis, where a huge crowd is gathered around Darrell Gwynn's pit as they prepare for the semifinals.
And Darrell's driver, Frank Hawley, will meet up with Kenny Bernstein. Here we see Bernstein's chief mechanic, Dale Armstrong, hard at work, really trying to find the missing piece to the puzzle to get that car down in the 5.0s where it's competitive with the likes of Hawley and Amato. But right now it is time for Funny Car round number 2. This capacity crowd looks on. Over 140,000 people have been here at Raceway Park over the course of the 5 days it is the U.S. Nationals. When you saw NBC Sports coverage of the Summer Nationals, you saw the man in that blue car, Chuck Etchels, win his first national championship event. Etchels from Putnam, Connecticut, is a very successful businessman in the printing industry. Mark Oswald is a very successful race car driver. That's the career he chose, and he's been highly rewarded for it, both in Top Fuel Dragsters and funny cars, primarily for the team of Leonard Hughes and Paul Candies out of Louisiana.
Chuck Etchels in the far lane qualified with a very strong 5.32. Well, Mark Oswald was kind of off pace a little bit with a 5.41. They've been struggling the entire meet to try to bring that performance up.
They're ready. Etchels with a great start. Oswald trying to catch up and cannot do it. Oswald runs a ignition time.
And this is what wins and loses them in drag racing. It's that starting line advantage. And here you see Chuck Etchels take a very nice hole shot, as we call it in the pits, and gets out in front of Oswald. The crew did step the car up. It did run good, 5:35, but was not good enough. Etchels was the better driver.
Note the performances. Oswald ran the quicker time, but he lost because of that hole shot.
Won it with a hole shot.
Did we really? Well, we needed it. This is the biggest race of the year. A lot of corporations here. We need money.
A 5:39.
Smitty said it would run a 38, so, I mean, he's on his mark as usual.
As always, Paul Smith, the chief mechanic on this car.
Race drivers are just like announcers. They're always looking for the big buck. Our next pairing, Casey Spurlock in the near lane, and this man, Tom Hoover, in the far lane.
You'll recall from our Summer Nationals coverage, we met the Hoover family, including this lovely lady, Ruth Hoover, Tom's 84-year-old mom. She's no dummy. She's found an air-conditioned VIP suite to watch this confrontation from. And it will be a tremendous race. Hoover from Maple Grove, Minnesota, really hungry. Hasn't won since 1979. Up against Casey Spurlock, Hendersonville, Tennessee, who won this year's Winter Nationals, and you saw it on NBC Sports.
And Steve, Tom Hoover's crew chief is his dad, George Hoover, who is 84 years old. He builds the engines.
Absolutely, one of the hardest working men in drag racing. Far lane is Hoover. On the right side of your screen is Spurlock. When all those lights are lit on the top of the Christmas tree, there'll be a yellow. There it is, and a green. Good start. It is Hoover. And George loved that. And so does Ruth, their little baby boy. 48-year-old Tom goes to the Final Four here at the U.S. Nationals with a 5:39. That surprised Spurlock.
Meanwhile, John Force is getting buckled in. He's got to be thinking about two things. One, beating Ed McCulloch. Two, all the fires that he has had. But he is not the only one who has tasted flames here at Indianapolis.
Whit Bazemore, Atlanta, Georgia. It was in qualifying that this occurred. A blown engine, 14 quarts of oil pumped into this fire. At this point, Bazemore had no idea where he was on the racetrack. The cockpit full of smoke at the far end of the racetrack. Somehow, through all of this flame, exited Whit Bazemore totally and completely unhurt. Thanks to a 7-layer fire suit, the Nomex underwear you see, socks, boots, helmet, not a blister on that young man. Here's what the car looked like back in the pits. What once was a $75,000 funny car, no more than toast.
Bird toast, I might add.
Oh, brutal big. You're brutal. Next, it'll be John Force against Ed McCulloch. Here are the current Winston Funny Car Championship point standings. Remember, each round of racing is worth 200 points to the winner, so if McCulloch can get by Force now, he can really close the gap. And as you might imagine, both competitors are painfully aware of this confrontation.
Ed, I know there's no time for socializing, but if you could say something right now to John Force before this race, what would it be?
It's not over till it's over. We'll see here pretty quick, John, what it's going to be. If we're going to do anything in this championship, we have to win right now. That's what we intend to do.
McCulloch says this is the showdown, one-on-one here now.
Well, it's a long ways to the World Championship, but ain't no psych job going to work on me today. Been too rough. We're going to race our own lane, and like Snake said, when you're on a roll, you're on a roll, and we ain't out of dead cats yet, but kind of like all I can say to that is he's my buddy. Just don't be late to work.
John Force referring to his personal hero, drag racing legend Don the Snake Prudhomme. By the way, we have no idea who the dead cats are.
I think he's 9 lives of a cat. I speak a little 4 C's. That's what I interpreted out of that. But here is John Force and Ed McCulloch. John Force, number 6 in the world a year ago, wants to improve to number 1, and you're going to ride with him as he races McCulloch.
Tremendous pressure here on both drivers. I would have to say there would be more pressure on John Force because he has had the fires and he's leading the points. He has more to lose.
There was a great start for Force, but he lost traction. That opens the door for McCulloch. McCulloch at 5:34, 2:71 to John Force's 5:45. Let's go to the starting line and Don Garland's.
I guess the gauntlet was thrown and you picked it up, Bernie.
I was real pleased about that. My mouth is dry after that one. They had me plenty worried. That was an extremely important round of racing to us, as you're well aware. It could have been the World Championship right there. I hope we can carry through in the rest of the event. Real place for the guys. Have been working real hard on the car, and it's just, you know, it's nice to see a little few rewards come their way. It's been a tough weekend to this point, but things are looking good. I think we're on a roll.
The conservative wisdom of Bernie Federle continues to pay off. In the first semifinal, it will be Dominic Santucci going against Ed McCulloch, and McCulloch has the lane choice. In the second semifinal, Tom Hoover will take on Chuck Etchells. The surprising Hoover has taken lane choice. Steve?
This year, John Force has defeated Ed McCulloch 3 times. Every single time they've met, but no more easy Ed. A 5:34 just whipped him.
Steve, we had to do this. I mean, if we got any chance at all in this World Championship Series, we had to beat Force right here. I told my guys this may be the single toughest round of my career. Beating Force this round, we did what we had to do.
And did it beautifully.
For Ed McCulloch, the tough round may be the turning point of the season. For John Force, he may remember this day with remorse. Top Fuel semifinals still to come. Welcome back to the NHRA U.S. Nationals as Joe Amato makes his way out of the pits and toward his meeting with Laurie Johns in the semifinals of Top Fuel Eliminator.
But before that, Charlie, we have got a totally different breed of NHRA race car. These are the pro stocks, and the fans love them. They're 4-speed transmissions. They run on gasoline like a street car and on carburetors like a street car. 500 cubic inch engines, huge motors, lightweight cars at only 2,350 pounds, and most importantly, I think to the fans, they look like a street car. Here in the first semifinal pairings, it'll be Jerry Ekman in the far lane up against this guy, very athletic Joe Lapone Jr. from Berwyn, Pennsylvania. He drives a Chevy Beretta, and he beat the points leader Warren Johnson in round number 1. Jerry Ekman, he drives a Pontiac Trans Am from Ventura, California, has won 3 times this year, including the Winter Nationals here on NBC, but just can't seem to get that points lead and hang on to it. They stage just like the dragsters and bunny cars. The first pair ready. You see the red light on the Christmas tree. That means that Joe Lapone left too soon. It's a foul start. He is eliminated. The yellow car, Jerry Ekman, has won, and Lapone will be furious at himself. He threw that away. A 7:36 because of the red light loses to a 7:46. He will be sick about that. Here is a pro stock car that all the fans recognize instantly. 10-time Winston champion Bob Glidden at the wheel of his Ford Pro. He'll be up against the Oldsmobile of Larry Morgan. Morgan has a crew person out there lining that car up in exactly the right place on the starting line, where they think the most traction is. Larry Morgan is the defending U.S. Nationals champion. He's from the state of Ohio and beat Bob Glidden in that final round a year ago. Now, Bob Glidden, do the Hoosiers love him? He's from Whiteland, Indiana. He's been in the U.S. Nationals final round 15 times and has won an incredible 9 times here at Indianapolis Raceway Park. And you're on board with Bob Glidden, his hand posed on the shifting mechanism as he faces off with Larry Morgan.
Steve, listen to those RPMs come up. They go clear up to 8,500 before they leave.
And it was a great lead by both drivers. Rusty Glidden cheering his dad on Morgan's crew likewise. And it is Larry Morgan. 7:31 to a 7.33 second elapsed time, and both of them run 188.
What a car race, side by side the entire quarter. But the race was won with horsepower because Bob Glidden took a starting line advantage. It was slight, but everything counts in pro stock racing. But the power of Larry Morgan pulled him through. Watch as these two cars approach the finish line, side by side. It was that little bit of power right at the end that Larry Morgan was able to produce that won the race.
If it had been a horse race, he would have won by a nose. So in the final of the Pro Stock, we will feature Larry Morgan against Jerry Ekman. Defending champion Larry Morgan has lane choice. Steve?
Well, one of the longest streaks in motorsports has come to an end, and we can't let Bob Glidden get away without saluting him for the 14 consecutive years you've been in the final round here.
Well, I think it was 13, Steve. This could have
saying 14 in the press room.
I think it was 13. This could have been the 14th, but, you know, it wasn't our day. Just, I thought we ran well, and you just have to have the right brakes, and we didn't get the right brake.
And so on this day of racing, Bob Glidden felt that the brakes were against him.